The night the galaxy quietly changed began like any other dull shift at Outpost Meridian. I was a maintenance technician, nothing glamorous, nothing heroic. My job was to keep aging equipment from falling apart on one of the most forgotten stations in the outer colonies. Most travelers passed through Meridian only when their ships needed repairs or when they were trying to disappear from somewhere else. The station orbited a quiet, gray planet called Lothar 9. No oceans, no forests, just endless deserts and storms of metallic dust. To most people, Meridian was a place you stopped at reluctantly.
To me, it was home.
My name is Elias Carter, and until that night, I believed my life would remain exactly the same forever. I was wrong. It started during the late shift. Most of the station had gone silent. Cargo haulers had docked hours ago, and the bars in the trade district were closing down. I was in Maintenance Corridor 7, fixing a malfunctioning pressure valve that had been screaming like a dying animal for 2 days. The corridor lights flickered overhead. I tightened the last bolt and wiped grease from my hands. That was when I heard footsteps. Slow, careful, unusual. Almost no one came to this section of a station at this hour. I turned around. At first, I thought she was human. A tall woman stood at the end of the corridor, her long coat shifting slightly in the artificial breeze of the station's ventilation system. Her hair shimmered silver under the pale lights, and her eyes, strangely bright, studied the hallway as if measuring every detail. But something about her felt wrong. Not dangerous, just different. She walked closer. Her footsteps were silent despite the metal floor. When she stopped a few meters away, she looked directly at me. "Are you the one responsible for maintaining the station?" she asked. Her voice was calm, elegant. Not the kind of voice you usually heard on a rundown station like Meridian. I shrugged. "Depends on what's broken." She tilted her head slightly, studying me in a way that made me feel like I was being scanned by a machine. Then she asked the question that would change everything. "Tell me, human, do you know who I am?" I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the situation felt ridiculous. "You're standing in a maintenance corridor on the edge of nowhere," I said. "So, unless you're the queen of lost travelers, I'm guessing no." For a moment, she said nothing. Then she smiled. Not offended, amused. "That is surprisingly close," she said. Something in my stomach tightened. "What?" Her eyes glowed faintly. "I am Queen Lysara of the Aurelian Dominion." The corridor suddenly felt much colder. I stared at her. Then I laughed again. "Right," I said. "And I'm the Emperor of Jupiter." She didn't laugh back. Instead, she raised her hand. A thin band around her wrist projected a holographic symbol into the air. I had seen that symbol before. Everyone had. The Aurelian Dominion ruled nearly a quarter of known space. Their fleets were legendary, their warriors terrifying, and their royal family untouchable. My laughter died instantly. "Oh," I said quietly. She lowered her hand. "Yes," she said calmly. Silence filled the corridor. My brain tried to process what I was seeing. "Wait," I finally said. "Why would a queen be walking around a maintenance corridor alone?" "That," she replied, "is an excellent question." She asked if we could speak somewhere private. I took her to a small observation room overlooking the barren planet below. Lothar 9's storm shimmered beneath the station like slow-moving silver oceans. Queen Lysara stood near the window, watching the distant lightning. "You're probably wondering why I am here," she said. "Yeah," I admitted. "Because queens usually travel with fleets." "Exactly." She turned toward me. "My fleet was destroyed 3 hours ago." The words landed like a hammer. "What?" "A surprise attack," she continued calmly. "Our enemies discovered my route and intercepted us." "Who attacked you?" The Karathi Collective. That name made my blood run cold. The Karathi were one of the most ruthless powers in the galaxy.
They didn't conquer planets.
They erased them. If they destroyed your fleet, I said slowly, then why aren't they here already?
They are looking, she replied.
But they do not know I escaped. How did you? Her eyes met mine. Because my ship crashed on Lothar 9. I blinked. You mean the planet right below us? Yes. And you walked here? She nodded. Across the entire observation room, the storm-lit desert looked endless. That's impossible, I said. Not for an Aurelian. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then a new thought hit me. If the Karathi are searching for you, I said slowly, then this station is about to become the worst hiding place in the galaxy. Correct. So, what's your plan? She studied me carefully. That depends. On what? On whether you are willing to help me. I crossed my arms. Help you do what? Her answer was simple. Survive. At first, I thought she was joking. I was a maintenance worker, not a soldier, not a spy. Definitely not someone who helped alien queens escape assassins. But Queen Lasara explained the situation. The Karathi believed she had died in the fleet battle. If they discovered she was alive, they would stop at nothing to finish the job. Entire colonies had been destroyed for less. If they find me here, she said quietly, this station will not survive. That was enough to make my decision. All right, I said. What do you need? Her expression softened slightly. A ship. Well, I said, that might actually be possible. Meridian was full of traders. Some ships were fast. Some were discreet. And a few were both. But there was one major problem. The station's security chief, I said. He scans every departure. Can he be persuaded? I shook my head. He hates smugglers, pirates, and probably alien queens too. She folded her arms. Then we must leave without being noticed, which is easier said than done. For a moment, we both stared out at the storm-covered planet. Then an idea formed.
Slow.
Risky. And probably insane. But it might work. There's an old cargo shuttle in Dock Bay 12, I said. It's barely operational. Can it fly? Technically. She raised an eyebrow. That sounds encouraging. It won't appear on most scanners, I continued, because it's listed as scrap. And where will it take us? I hesitated. Then I smiled. Somewhere the Karathi will never expect. Getting to Dock Bay 12 was harder than I expected. The station had already begun noticing unusual signals. Rumors spread quickly in places like Meridian. And when 2 Karathi warships suddenly appeared in orbit, everyone felt the tension. Queen Lasara wore a hood to hide her face. We moved through the lower levels of the station, avoiding cameras, avoiding patrols, avoiding attention. But even disguised, she carried herself like royalty.
Confident.
Unafraid. People noticed. One dock worker stared at her as we passed. Hey, he said suspiciously. You two look. Queen Lasara glanced at him. Just one look. The man froze. His expression softened instantly. Then he turned back to his work as if nothing had happened. I stared at her. What did you just do? Aurelian neural influence, she said. You can control minds? Only briefly. Remind me never to play cards with you. She smiled faintly. Dock Bay 12 was dark. Dust covered the floor. The old cargo shuttle sat exactly where I remembered it. Ugly.
Slow.
But functional. Behold, I said proudly. Our escape vehicle.
She studied the ship.
Charming. Hey, it flies. That remains to be seen. I opened the cargo ramp. Inside, the shuttle smelled like rust and engine coolant. But the controls still worked, mostly. As I powered up the engines, alarms suddenly echoed through the station. Red lights flashed across the hangar. Queen Lasara turned toward the entrance. "They have discovered something," she said. Probably the part where 2 Karathi cruisers just started scanning the station. The shuttle engines roared to life. "Can we outrun them?" she asked. I shook my head. "No." "Then what is the plan?" I grinned. "We don't run." Her eyes narrowed.
What?
"We hide." The shuttle lifted off seconds before security arrived. But instead of leaving the station, I flew straight down, toward Lothar 9. Queen Lasara looked at the storm-covered planet approaching through the cockpit window. "You are flying directly into a dust hurricane," she observed calmly. "Yep." "Why?" "Because no one is stupid enough to hide there." She considered that. "Except us." "Exactly." The shuttle shook violently as we entered the storm. Lightning flashed around us. Metallic dust scraped against the hull like sandpaper. Sensors failed almost instantly. But eventually, the turbulence stopped. We landed in the center of a massive canyon hidden beneath the storm. The shuttle engines powered down. Silence filled the cockpit. Queen Lasara looked out at the endless desert. "You realize," she said, "that we are now stranded on one of the most hostile planets in this sector." I leaned back in my seat. "Yeah," I said, "but at least the Karathi won't find us." Above us, the storm roared. The galaxy searched for a missing queen. And somewhere out there, war fleets hunted for her. But in that quiet canyon beneath the storm, for the first time that night, we were safe. Hours passed. The storm outside never weakened. Inside the cargo shuttle, the silence felt almost unreal after everything that had happened. Queen Lasara sat across from me near the cockpit window, watching the swirling clouds of metallic dust that raged above the canyon. The faint blue light from the shuttle's control panels illuminated her face, giving her an almost ethereal appearance. For someone who had just lost an entire fleet and barely escaped assassination, she seemed calm.
Too calm.
"You don't seem worried," I finally said. She looked at me. "I am always worried." "That's not what it looks like." "That is because a queen cannot afford to look afraid." I leaned back in my seat. "That must be exhausting." "Sometimes." She studied me for a moment. "You, however, seem unusually relaxed for someone hiding from an interstellar war fleet." I shrugged. "I spent 10 years fixing broken machines on a dying station. After that, being chased by galactic warlords almost feels exciting." That earned a quiet laugh from her. It was the first time I had heard it, and for a moment, she didn't seem like a distant alien ruler. She just seemed human. Or at least close enough. 2 days passed. The storm protected us, but it also trapped us. Long-range scanners were useless in the interference, and our fuel reserves were limited. We couldn't stay forever. On the 3rd day, Queen Lasara stood beside the cockpit window again. "The Karathi will assume I died in the fleet battle," she said thoughtfully. "Good for us. But eventually, they will search every possible escape route." "So, what are you saying?" "We must leave before they begin searching the planet." I frowned. "That storm will tear this shuttle apart." "Not if we time it correctly." "You mean fly through the worst dust storm in the sector and hope for the best?" "Yes." "That's not a plan. That is survival." I rubbed my face. "You queens really don't do things halfway, do you?"
No.
She turned to me again. "But I will not ask you to risk your life further, Elias. You have already done more than most." I stared at her. "You're serious?" "Yes." "You think I'm just going to leave you here? You owe me nothing." I sighed. "Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure the Karathi will destroy the station once they realize you escaped through Meridian." Her expression darkened. They might. So if I leave you here, I continued, that doesn't actually save anyone. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she nodded. Very well. So, what's the next step, Your Majesty? Her eyes gleamed slightly. We take back my throne. I blinked. Wait, what? Her plan sounded insane. According to Queen Lysara, the Aurelian Dominion had already begun receiving reports that their queen had died in battle. Without her leadership, rival factions within the Dominion would start competing for power. Civil conflict would follow. And that would be exactly what the Karathi wanted. So, you need to show up alive before that happens, I said. Yes. And how exactly do we do that in a rusted cargo shuttle? She stepped closer to the navigation console. There is an Aurelian outpost 2 systems from here. I pulled up the star map. That's still deep inside Karathi patrol territory. They will not expect a damaged shuttle to approach from this direction, because it would be suicidal. Yes. I looked at her. You're starting to see why I keep saying your plans are insane, right? She smiled slightly. Yet you are still here. I shook my head. Yeah, I guess I am. We launched during a brief lull in the storm. The shuttle barely survived the ascent. Metal dust slammed against the hull like 1,000 hammer blows. Sensors flickered. Engines screamed. But somehow, we broke through the storm. Stars filled the sky. For a moment, it felt like victory. Then the alarm started. 2 Karathi cruisers were still orbiting the planet. And they had seen us. Of course they did, I muttered. Red warning lights flashed across the cockpit. Missile lock detected. Queen Lysara sat calmly beside me. Can this ship evade them?
No.
Then what do you suggest? I grinned. Something incredibly stupid. She looked amused. I am becoming accustomed to that. Instead of fleeing into open space, I flew directly toward the cruisers. Queen Lysara stared at the navigation screen. You are flying toward the enemy fleet. Yep. They will destroy us. Not immediately. Missiles launched behind us. I pushed the engines to their absolute limit. The old shuttle shook violently as we raced toward the nearest cruiser. At the last possible moment, I dove beneath its massive hull. The missile tracking systems couldn't adjust fast enough. The missiles slammed into the cruiser instead. A massive explosion lit up space. The second cruiser turned to pursue us. But the damaged ship drifted directly into its path. The 2 massive warships collided. The explosion was enormous. For a moment, the entire sky turned white. Queen Lysara stared out the window. Then she looked at me. You destroyed 2 Karathi warships with a cargo shuttle. I shrugged. Maintenance technicians are very creative. She laughed again. And this time, the sound carried something new. Respect. 3 days later, we arrived at the hidden Aurelian outpost. The moment the station confirmed Queen Lysara's identity, everything changed. Alarms sounded across the facility. Aurelian soldiers filled the hangar. They dropped to one knee the moment she stepped off the shuttle. My queen, their commander said. Relief filled his voice. Across the galaxy, news spread rapidly. Queen Lysara was alive. The Dominion would not fall into chaos. The Karathi plan had failed. But the most surprising moment came later. In the command chamber of the outpost, Queen Lysara stood before a massive holographic map of the galaxy. Advisors and generals surrounded her, and I stood awkwardly near the wall, feeling extremely out of place. One of the generals turned toward me. Your Majesty, he said carefully. Who is this human? Queen Lysara looked at me. Then she answered in a calm, confident voice. This is Elias Carter. The room waited. She continued. The man who saved my life. The generals exchanged glances. One of them spoke carefully. What reward shall he receive? I expected money. Or maybe a ship. Instead, Queen Lasara walked toward me. Then she asked a question I never expected. Elias Carter, she said softly, would you consider becoming my royal advisor? The entire room froze, including me.
You're joking, I said.
I am not. I fix broken engines. You also outmaneuvered Karathi warships and saved the ruler of the Aurelian Dominion. That was mostly luck. Perhaps, she said, but sometimes luck is exactly what an empire needs. I stared at her. Then I laughed quietly. You know what? I said. Why not? Her smile returned. And somewhere far beyond that distant outpost, the galaxy began whispering about the human who helped save a queen. Because sometimes, history doesn't change during great battles or royal ceremonies. Sometimes, it changes in a forgotten maintenance corridor. When a mysterious woman asks one simple question, do you know who I am? And the answer turns out to be far more important than anyone could have imagined.